Folks will be live at Jimmy at the Crossroads in just a few moments. Stay tuned.
And that, my friends, is how America was made great once again. Breaking at this hour, Jimmy Sengenberger is currently at the crossroads of politics and economics. Radio broadcaster master, now the celeb on the web. He's the smarty of the party. He's in cahoots with the grassroots. Jimmy at the Crossroads brings you thought-provoking commentary, hard-hitting interviews, original satire, and the best bumper music known to man. Jimmy at the Crossroads!
Gonna talk money, gonna talk politics, great for all generations. Oh, what a great mix, I said. Gonna talk money, gonna talk politics, great for all generations. Oh, what a great mix. I got Jimmy at the Crossroads, making sense out of nonsense. People want answers, they want to understand. They come to the crossroads and Jimmy gives them the plan. I said, gonna talk money, gonna talk politics, great for all generations. Oh, what a great mix. I got Jimmy at the crossroads, making sense out of nonsense. Come on, Jimmy, what you got?
Hello, my friends, and welcome to another edition of Jimmy at the Crossroads. I'm Jimmy Sengenberger, your host for the program, coming to you a little late today, and what's normally a free-to-choose Friday, things are a little different today. We had a lot going on this week and this morning, so making some adjustments for a one-time, different kind of Friday here on the show that indeed is making sense out of nonsense every time that we are here with engaging, intelligent talk, saying style, and partnership with the Washington Examiner. If you have not done so already, please do subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Jimmy at the Crossroads. You can also, and I do encourage you, please follow me on Twitter at Sang Center. That's Sang with an E, not an A, Center on Twitter. And of course on Facebook, facebook.com/Jimmy Sengenberger Pro will take you to Jimmy Sengenberger Media Personality. In addition, I strongly recommend you check out jimmyatthecrossroads.com, where all of our content is there, all the videos, different articles I've published, and so much more, plus the Crossroads Shop and the Crossroads Club membership program. Be sure to check them out at jimmyatthecrossroads.com. In addition, follow our friends and partners at the Washington Examiner. Like, subscribe, all those good things. YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and of course at WashingtonExaminer.com. So today here at the Crossroads, we've got a few different things that we're going to be doing. I'm going to give a little bit of an update about the pro-police rally Colorado that was disrupted by brutish thugs on Sunday in downtown Denver at Civic Center Park. We've got some stunning audio that we didn't have on Wednesday when we came onto the show, but I want to share with you. Also, Dave Grohl of the Foo Fighters, he went after Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education, in an article just a couple of days ago for The Atlantic, saying that she is trying to tell teachers how to teach, and she shouldn't. Well, she's not telling teachers how to teach. We'll talk about that. Plus, Nathan Matoush, producer extraordinaire, on the name change for the Washington Redskins. What are they going to be called, at least for this season? It's such a riveting name. We will share it and talk about it with you today here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. First, I want to start with an update on Sunday's rally in downtown Denver, Civic Center Park. We've done a lot about this week. A lot of videos out there. A lot of people have been watching them. It is the 6th annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Day rally. I've been a part of it for the past 5 occasions. And it's always a great, wonderful event, a family-friendly celebration, an enjoyable occasion, including live music. I was set to play harmonica with the band. We'd started playing a little bit, but we hardly got to play any music before we were literally shut down. As a reminder, let's play cut 1. This is how it all began in downtown Denver Civic Center Park for a permitted event when a swarm of Antifa and Black Lives Matter extremists surrounded the facility and completely succeeded in their effort to shut down the 6th annual pro-police rally, Colorado.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is all they can do. They cannot let you speak. I'm so thankful that you guys came out in the midst of all this foolishness. And now I want to invite up the founder of Pro Police Rally Colorado. Well, we give thanks to God right now. Ron McLaughlin, are you here? I want to thank each and every one of you for coming out today. We do have a First Amendment right. We are allowed to say what we want to say in this country. So say what you have to say. But we will start this thing off in a moment of prayer. As John Leslie have an invocation.
And you could hardly hear lead organizer Ron McLaughlin lead in the prayer. We could hardly hear Randy Corcoran lead in the Pledge of Allegiance. We could hardly hear music from the band, which just after Ron's brief invocation, we began playing. I stopped literally like 20 seconds in, if not less, because I couldn't hear myself and the chaos was deep. So I picked up my phone and started doing a little bit more filming. Let's go to cut 3. Just one more taste visually from what I took on the scene at Sunday's Pro Police Rally, Colorado, again as a reminder for the chaos. It was a song, then the pledge and a welcome, then a brief invocation, then we started playing music. Hardly even got in when a fight already had broken out. That's the level of chaos that went down. We also have some B-roll footage from a colleague of mine on 710 KNUS Radio in Denver. Deborah Flora had posted this footage. We'll put it up on the screen now from the rally that she took that really shows just how chaotic things were immediately. It took no time. Now, you see police there, suited up and armed, but they hardly did anything. Broke up a couple of skirmishes, scuffles, better word, fights because of Antifa thugs that initiated these attacks, just as that example right there shows. Unprovoked completely from start to finish. You can see the chaos there. And what's astounding, too, there was one arrest and there were a couple of pepper balls fired. Looks like after we'd all left. Unbelievable. The chaos that ensued on Sunday in downtown Denver, Civic Center Park, at the 6th annual Law Enforcement Appreciation Day rally. Now, that's a reminder of what happened. On Wednesday, another one of my colleagues on 710 KNUS, Peter Boyles, he interviewed the union president, Nick Rogers, president of the police union, who came on his show, his morning show, and apologized, but he didn't just apologize on behalf of the rank and file. He also revealed some very disturbing facts that he learned from looking into this more deeply. So we got a few minutes of this. It is unbelievable when you have the police union president apologizing, number one, number two, saying that a retreat order had come down in order to retreat for the police. And a lieutenant, one solitary lieutenant, broke ranks and said, hell no, we are not going to abandon these people. Imagine the chaos, the violence, the bloodshed that would have been highly likely had the police left, even from doing the minuscule amount that they were allowed to do. This lieutenant broke ranks and said, no, we're not going to leave. Take a listen, 710 KNUS, Peter Boyle's show, Nick Rogers, the police union president, also Michelle Malkin, who was at this rally. She was on this phone call, on this interview as well.
I'm sorry on behalf of the rank and file. That's not us. That's not who we are. And it just kills me that we let good people down. And I'll be honest with you. As I've done my due diligence, I did discover a couple of things. I found out that a retreat order was given by the incident commander. And we had one lieutenant step up and said, we're not leaving. And this lieutenant said, these people are going to get killed if we don't stay. So he kept his group there. And that's the only reason this thing didn't even get worse, because somebody broke ranks and decided to not retreat. And they stayed so that they could provide some assistance. And I'll be honest with you. I'm sad. It's embarrassing to me. And again, Michelle, anybody that's listening that was there, that's not the rank and file. That's not the cops. That decision was made by someone else, and it was wrong. And I'm sorry. Pete, I've looked at it. I've been at these events before. I know how we operate. We've done hundreds of protests, hundreds, and we have never used that tactic before, especially when things are at such a heightened right now. It's such a heightened sense of it's just everybody's hypersensitive. People are angry. People are, coming off the COVID lockdown, the riots. We failed in our tactics. And I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you. I think I know why. Because this event was a pro-law enforcement rally. And I believe that discussions were had. And Pete, I have nothing. This is my gut feeling, and I think I'm right. I think they underreacted because they didn't want to have the appearance that they were taking one side or the other, and so they failed those people.
Michelle's right. That's laughable.
And
Oh my God.
They didn't act. They didn't allow the police to do their job because they didn't want to be seen like they were taking sides. I wish I'd thought of putting footage out. Maybe we'll do it in post, but the police chief, Payson, just a couple of months ago, literally walked arm in arm with Black Lives Matter protesters. And that's not choosing sides. And then here, he refuses to allow adequate protection for law enforcement advocates doing an annual gathering that normally is family friendly, clearly was not this year because of what Antifa and Black Lives Matter extremists and what they did. But normally a family-friendly affair with live music, job fair components, vendors, usually a lot of fun, not chaotic like that. And he didn't want to seem like he was supportive of that event, of those individuals, by allowing police to do their job, and then go so far as to order the retreat of the police who were on site. And a lieutenant breaks ranks and says, no, We're not leaving. We cannot abandon these people because it will get much worse. This is the kind of attitude increasingly of politician-controlled police chiefs across the country. This is just Denver. Denver's a big city, not a big city. But if this can happen in a big city, it's no wonder that we're seeing this kind of thing happen in a big city in different circumstances in terms of Portland and Seattle. And people are complaining that President Trump's actually trying to enforce law and order in those cities. Now, I don't necessarily agree with all of the tactics that the Trump administration is implementing, but we do need law and order in those cities. In Chicago, you literally have black men and women who have seen black children shot and killed, calling out and saying, please, President Trump, send some authority figures into this community to enforce law and order, because Mayor Lightfoot's a lightweight who won't do it. Make no mistake, we have feckless politicians in city after city after city that are allowing their areas to be absolutely degraded. And that should be disheartening to each and every American across this country. If this kind of a peaceful gathering of an annual event can be interrupted by radicals in a brutal and violent way, and they get away with it, and the police chief even wants to retreat, and that happens in one circumstance in this big city, what about the big cities or even smaller cities across the country that are gathering together people for peaceful reasons, and they might start to see this happen there? We've seen businesses destroyed. We've seen vandalism, but this is the first instance I'm aware of with this kind of brazen onslaught by these Antifa thugs who've been increasingly emboldened by politicians who are unwilling to do what is right. This is happening everywhere across the country, and Denver is a microcosm and a warning, being the first instance, again, that I know of where you had a peaceful demonstration, a peaceful gathering, attacked like this. And again, they retreat. They're told to retreat, and Lieutenant says, no, we're not doing that. We're staying. Unacceptable. And everybody across this country absolutely needs to wake up. We'll see what happens next. We'll keep on top of this story. I'll be talking about it tomorrow on 710 KNUS as well. I'm going to be filling in for George Brockler from 6 to 9 Mountain Time in the morning. And, of course, my own show, 5 to 8 p.m. Again, on News Talk 710 KNUS. Mountain Time, of course, in Denver. You can listen online and also check out podcasts as well. We'll see what happens and keep monitoring the situation. I want to shift gears to topic number 2 today here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, coming to you once again in partnership with the Washington Examiner, bringing you engaging, intelligent talk, saying style. So we're not really doing a free-to-choose Friday today, the way things shaped up, but there are free-to-choose elements from this next discussion about education, K-12 education, and some comments of Dave Grohl, Foo Fighters band leader, in a piece for The Atlantic a few days ago, where he blasted Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos. So let's call this a little bit of a free-to-choose Friday moment, and this is how Milton Friedman, our patron economist and a noted school choice advocate and leader, how he would begin his show, Free to Choose, back in 1980. Free to Choose Friday, shall we call it, moment here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. So there has been a debate raging across the country over reopening schools, how to go about it. Secretary of Education DeVos has been a strong advocate for telling schools, hey, you need to get open. Figure out a plan. Across the country, school district after school district, you need to get schools open once again. But she's not saying how to do it. She's not even guaranteeing that if you have a massive flare-up that's been going on in an individual community, that you need to avoid, that you need to still start school nonetheless. She has been very clear, and this is consistent with the DeVos view of the Federal Department of Education, consistent with the idea that individual school districts and schools should make decisions about how to implement things much more. In fact, I think we have a clip from exchange that Betsy DeVos did a few weeks ago, and we played this a couple weeks ago, with Dana Bash of CNN, where she tried to articulate her view a little bit on reopening schools.
To be clear, are you saying then areas where there is a flare-up that schools should revert to remote learning?
I'm saying that schools should have plans, like Miami-Dade County has. They should have plans, and the parents and families should know what their options are.
I'm asking you, ma'am, as Secretary of Education, if there is a flare-up, should schools revert to remote learning? You're very aggressive about saying reopen, and the next question, the obvious question is, what happens if they feel that they can't? Are you comfortable with remote learning if they can't?
I think the go-to needs to be kids in school, in person, in the classroom, because we know for most kids that's the best environment for them.
I understand that,
and
but
we have
what
to
if they
also
can't?
understand. What if they can't? What?
What if the school district feels that they can't safely go into the school because there is a flare-up in that district? Remote learning, are you okay with it in that situation?
If there's a short-term flare-up for a few days, that's a different situation than planning for an entire school year in anticipation of something that hasn't happened.
And in another clip that we had, Betsy DeVos explains that, look, local school districts need to make their own decisions. We don't have a one-size-fits-all approach, despite the way that Dana Bash and others are trying to frame the issue, as though there is a one-size-fits-all strategy that is being taken by the Federal Department of Education. No, she said in the guidepost, we talked about this last week, the guidepost, that teachers should be back in school with their students to the greatest extent possible. That should be the rule with some exceptions. Well, Dave Grohl, band leader for Foo Fighters, the rock band, published a letter to the editor, a very lengthy one, in The Atlantic a few days ago on the 21st. And I want to share the way in which he ended that op-ed piece. He said this: I wouldn't trust the U.S. Secretary of Percussion to tell me how to play Smells Like Teen Spirit if they had never sat behind a drum set. So why should any teacher trust Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos to tell them how to teach without her ever having sat at the head of a class? Maybe she should switch to the drums. Until you have spent countless days in a classroom devoting your time and energy to becoming that lifelong mentor to generations of otherwise disengaged students, you must listen to those who have. Teachers want to teach, not die, and we should support and protect them like the national treasures that they are, for without them, where would we be? May we show these tireless altruists a little altruism in return? I would for my favorite teacher. Wouldn't you? But that line here, I wouldn't trust the U.S. Secretary of Percussion to tell me how to play Smells Like Teen Spirit if they had never sat behind a drum set. So why should any teacher trust Secretary of Education Betsy DeVos to tell them how to teach without her ever having sat at the head of the class? First of all, Betsy DeVos is in no way the first leader of an education department not to have any classroom education experience. Second of all, he misses the point. He doesn't understand, and he's conflating two issues. Number one, it is not a matter of telling teachers how to teach to insist that the rule be that schools are reopened in the fall. That isn't telling teachers how to teach, number one. Number two, on that point, Betsy DeVos is the antithesis of micromanaging teachers and telling them how to do their jobs. She believes in scaling back the role of the Federal Department of Education, of opening up choice opportunities for more parents, students, and teachers, for creating environments across the country where you have less top-down regulations and management from the federal government to the greatest extent possible. Like, that's the philosophy of a conservative in the education department. It's the right one because the education department should not exist at the federal level. Nowhere in the find me in the Constitution anything related to authorizing a federal Department of Education. You will not find it in there. So when we have a Secretary of Education say, here's the goal, but we're going to have all the states and local communities determine how to achieve that goal, that's the way you do it. That's not telling teachers how to teach. Dave Grohl is a fool who doesn't understand how this works. He doesn't understand, like so many others, like all of those who were retweeting excerpts of his piece and just praising, oh, look at Dave Grohl. He doesn't understand the philosophy and the approach of Betsy DeVos, Secretary of Education. But then also, he's fundamentally wrong on another point, which is about the threat and the concern, health-wise, for COVID-19 and reopening schools. There are a lot of liberals who are pointing out that President Trump now is canceling Jacksonville events where he was supposed to give his big speech in front of all the delegates at the Republican National Convention. And they're saying, you want to cancel that, but you want Florida to reopen schools? How do you square that circle? How can you do that, President Trump? Well, with all due respect to Dave Grohl and others, the reality is that this is not, COVID-19 is not the kind of threat to teachers and students in schools that they're trying to paint the picture of. And I should note this before I get into that. And that is that, look, he's absolutely right that we need to give teachers latitude. Let teachers determine how best to be in the classroom. I absolutely agree with that. I have spoken to dozens upon dozens of fifth grade classes in the past through my own nonprofit work. And I've seen how classrooms operate, how teachers operate, and they are incredible. They are heroes. And his mother was a teacher, public school teacher. And he's absolutely right to have concern for educators. Where he goes off the beaten path, like so many others, is on the threat of COVID-19 spread in schools. And, of course, he's foolish when it comes to Betsy DeVos and how she operates, but okay, that's one thing. The other thing is concern over students being back in school. Well, I had a piece, published my latest column in Colorado Politics on Monday, where I'm a columnist, and I noted this. A new report from the Foundation for Research on Equal Opportunity, FREOP, lays this out well, rooted in science and data. The report notes, quote, Americans under the age of 25 represent 0.15% of all COVID-19 fatalities in the U.S. FREOP finds that kids aged 5 to 14 are, quote, 7 times more likely to die from influenza than COVID-19, yet we don't close schools during flu season. According to the report, there appears to be a very low risk of transmission of COVID-19 from children to adults, citing population-wide studies in Europe that find little to no evidence of children to adult transmission. Indeed, children have generally received the virus from adults. The CDC reports 30 American children under age 15 had died from COVID-19 by July 12th. As a recent Wall Street Journal editorial points out, data from Sweden, northern France, Germany, Singapore, Norway, Denmark, Finland, and Israel, where schools either were never closed or were reopened, support the low risk to children and teachers. In all of these countries that didn't close schools or that have reopened, they haven't seen a concentrated spread coming from schools, and we have not seen significant issues to children when it comes to public health, when it comes to their personal health and the adverse impacts. The idea that children are spreading to adults isn't borne out by the data. We're supposed to talk about science, right? And hail science as being what we need to look towards for guidance here. Well, okay, look at the science, not fear. The science tells us that kids can and should be back into schools, and school districts can do what some school districts are doing, like here in Colorado. Get a head count. How many parents want their students in school? How many want to do remote learning? Then figure out how many teachers need to be in the class, how many teachers need to teach online, and assign higher risk teachers to work at home and teach from home remotely, and lower risk teachers, like in their 20s and 30s, assign them into the classroom. Schools are essential businesses. They are. That's the reality. And by the way, taxpayers are funding those schools no matter what, it appears. Well, if a school is closed and a parent wants their child to be able to get in-person education, and their school is not open, but there are schools in the area that are charter or private schools that they would like to send their child to, but can't afford to, well, government funds should be used. Instead of going to their local school, they should be going to the school that is open. We shouldn't just be having taxpayer dollars go into the classrooms of schools that are not open. And we've talked about this before too. Compare the relatively low risk of COVID-19 to and from children with the cost of denying them an in-person education. Remote learning is not effective, especially for young children who need that classroom environment, need that give and take with their teachers. And according to a research nonprofit, NWEA, remote learning means students are likely to return in the fall with approximately 63 to 68% of the learning gains in reading relative to a typical school year, and with 37 to 50% of learning gains in math. That's just the expected loss of learning in math and reading from one semester of mostly remote learning. Then you have summer months, and now they're going to be remote learning again in the fall? As the president of the American Academy of Pediatricians has pointed out, children don't just benefit in the classroom from education, but that's also where they gain fundamental social skills, they get better nutrition and exercise, teachers can catch learning deficiencies, they can catch physical and emotional abuse. During the lockdowns, we were not seeing the normal numbers of reported at-home abuse because students were separated from teachers who would often identify that kind of abuse. They often identify mental health problems, and I know from experience, eyesight issues. Your kid's having trouble seeing. So I recommend that you get their eyes checked. And special needs students are being left out in the cold. I wrote this in Colorado Politics, and I really fervently advocate this position. If you believe quality education is important, you want kids back in school, period. And quality education must always be a school's top priority. This is not the big risk that Dave Grohl and many teachers' unions are trying to present it as. Yes, you need to take precautions. I'm not saying that. And school districts can decide if they want to have masks, if they want to have certain separation levels, and what have you. But this isn't something we should be hysterical about. The science, which we're supposed to look at science again. The Democrats always say, well, we need to look at the science and make a decision there. Well, you're not. If you want to just close schools in a knee-jerk reaction You're not actually looking at the science, and you're not doing what my dad calls the Ben Franklin analysis, the pros and the cons. Do the list. The cons of keeping schools closed far and away outweigh the supposed pros. At this point, there are hardly any pros, proven from the data, proven from experience, to closing schools and keeping them closed going into the fall. So much more harm. But then also this maligning of Secretary DeVos completely and utterly misses the mark about the philosophy of a conservative in the Department of Education, which underscores why I think she's so perfect for the role, because she doesn't believe in micromanaging teachers from the federal level. Betsy DeVos believes that we should scale back the federal role and be smarter in how taxpayer dollars are spent and open up to more choice so that parents have opportunities, especially in a crisis situation like this, to make sure that their kids get the quality education that they need in order to be successful. That, my friends, is the reality of this reopening of schools debate and the reality of Betsy DeVos as Secretary of Education, and the philosophy of a far less federal government knows best approach. Again, she's setting the guideposts, the goal, the sort of rule. Schools reopen. There are exceptions to the rule, and you school districts and schools get to make the decision, and that is exactly how it should be, especially if we believe in a society that advocates fervently for each and every human being to be free to think, free to act, and free to choose. For reaction to my commentary here and also to talk about the new name for the Washington Redskins, I am pleased to welcome back for the first time in quite a little bit our producer extraordinaire here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, Mr. Nathan Matoush, working the Matoush magic day in and day out. Nathan, how the heck are you, brother?
Jimmy, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on once again. You're right. It has been a while since I've got some camera time.
Yeah, well, here you are, and I want to first get your reaction to, we've talked a lot about the rally and the thuggery that happened in terms of interrupting all that on Sunday. We've talked, I just went through about Betsy DeVos again and what we're seeing with the reopening of schools debate. Just any thoughts that come to mind on those topics?
Yeah. I mean, I've been listening to all sorts of things this week, and Monday was a great show. We really pinpoint what went on Sunday, and it's unfortunate that this type of stuff is going on in the country. And I'm a supporter of Black Lives Matter. I mean, you've been a supporter of it as well.
Certainly, the genuine idea.
The genuine idea, but when it becomes radicalized to the point where other people are not able to have their freedom of speech, their freedom to say, hey, pro-police, pro-America, stuff like that, that's when it becomes a problem. And when it becomes a problem where we're now supporting defunding the police when we're supporting Black Lives Matter. That's what's happened with the Black Lives Matter movement. It's not really a movement anymore about racial injustice. Maybe
to the extent it was.
To the extent it still is, but it's turning more into now defund the police, defund the military, take down our country, destroy statues. That's not really what the movement was designed to be for. And so I think that really sticks out to me.
Well, I will say that to an extent, there was a genuine aspect to Black Lives Matter and the idea that we need to prevent against racial injustice, that we need to change things in how policing is done. But I also think these radical elements have always been there. And it's just now they've become increasingly emboldened, especially as politicians and local chiefs of police, like in Denver, insist on allowing this kind of behavior to happen unimpeded.
Yeah, definitely. Well said. And they're drawing everything into it. Like, I mean, we could compare it to what's happening with the schools. Like they're saying, like in Los Angeles, they're holding kids literally hostage and keeping them away from education, away from school until the police is defunded. So, I mean, this is just literally, the whole movement is politicalized now. I don't know. I really don't. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, it is. It's stunning what's going on here. But let's go into your territory, Nathan Matoush. So we got word that the Washington Redskins are doing their name change. We knew that. That had come out a few weeks ago. Yep. But now we know what for this season they are changing their name to. I think we have the logo for this very exciting name. Nathan Matoush, take it away.
Let's check it out, folks. Yeah, the Washington football team.
Whoa, what a name!
I mean, what a name. That really sticks out to you, huh? That's going to be the name of the previously the Washington Redskins. I'm going to have to catch myself every time I say the Washington Redskins, but that's the temporary name for 2020. Jimmy, can you imagine them winning the Super Bowl? I mean, what's the announcer going to be like? The Washington football team has won the Super Bowl.
They're not going to win the Super Bowl anyway. The Giants will win the Super Bowl. No.
Well, we could debate that another time, my friend.
So I have to say, you look at that name. Put it up on the screen, Wilbur Tide, please. The Washington football team. Couldn't they at least be a little bit clever? Maybe call it the Washington Temporaries. I mean, I know that that's not a great name in and of itself, but if you're not going to pick a name, at least give them something. The Washington football team. Ladies and gentlemen, do it in your announcer voice, Nathan.
Ladies and gentlemen, here comes the Washington football team onto the field. I mean,
what does their uniform look like?
Yeah, we got pictures of their uniform. It still looks decent. I mean, it still looks like kind of the old Redskins, but it's just kind of plain. It's just kind of
put it up.
Bland. Yeah. Here's the home unis for the Washington football team. They got their helmets are just they still got the same colors. They still got the burgundy and the yellow, but this time they got the numbers on their helmets, and then right on their chest there it just says Washington football team. Here's the back of the jerseys. So that's going to be the quarterback, Dwayne Haskins. That's going to be pretty much how he looks on a day-to-day basis, my friend.
Huh.
Interesting.
I'm so it's honestly it's laughable. Like they decide to get rid of the name and they don't haven't given themselves enough time to change the name into something final, and they don't even come up with some fun temporary name. At least have a little fun with it. I mean, I don't know. Washington Temporaries might be the lamest name that you could be looking for, but I'm sure there are a lot of. What would you like to see? The Washington what for their interim team name, Nathan Matoush?
I've always thought what stuck out to me is the Washington Warriors. I think that would sound the best. The Washington Warriors.
It flows well, but you run into that Redskins issue too, because that could be said to be associated with Indians, Native Americans.
Well, yeah, and also the Cleveland Indians have explored the upper management. The owner is talking to certain Native American tribes to see if that name should be changed. So the Cleveland, it's not just the Redskins that are in this conversation, but the Cleveland Indians for Major League Baseball. Also, the Atlanta Braves are looking into that. The Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, you could see a lot of different name changes here within at least the next couple months.
I don't know. I don't really like that. I think we need to, the Giants name, maybe that's going to need to be changed because that could be offensive to, really, really tall, really big people. No, I understand some of this. The Redskins name, I can understand the Redskins name in the sense that is an epithet. Like that has been used in a very negative way in history in the past. Okay, fine. Those other names, that's just that's ridiculous. If you're going overboard when you get there.
Yeah, the Redskins I can understand.
But have a temporary name or have your permanent name figured out.
Yeah, at least have something on the table. I mean, come on, Dan Snyder. You're the owner of the Washington football team now. Once again, I was going to say the Washington Redskins. But yeah, like you said, Redskins I can understand. I mean, what if they had a team that was
at least to an extent, yeah.
Yeah, what if they had a team that was called like the White Skins or something? I can understand the possible racism tension out of that. But the Cleveland Indians? The Atlanta Braves, the Kansas City Chiefs. I mean, we're going to have like a reform of sports here. I'm going to be...
Yeah. Let me ask you one more question here before we wrap up. We saw the Washington Nationals played the Yankees last night. Of course, Dr. Fauci threw the ceremonial first pitch.
He did.
And then he proceeded. We saw some images to be sitting next to someone without a mask, next to someone with a mask, and his mask was down below his chin, which is a great way when you're off camera, at least you think you're off camera, to demonstrate social distancing, Dr. Fauci. But I digress. The reality is baseball's back. We're getting ready for football, these other sports coming up, even without the audience. What are you thinking?
I'm looking forward to it. It's like Christmas in July last night, my friend. I had a chance to go over to a couple buddies' house, watch the baseball games. Yes, the Nationals took on the Yankees. My Rockies, right there, repping the Rockies tonight. They got opening day against the Texas Rangers down in Arlington. But I'm looking forward to it. It's at the end of July. NBA comes back. NHL comes back. We got all the sports pretty much coming back. Training camp is set to open up here within a couple weeks. They've already canceled like 2 preseason games. But either way, sports is better than nothing.
Even if you don't have the audiences there. Yeah, I mean, it was kind of weird. But, hey, at least they had music. They had a little bit of music going on, trying to keep things about as normal as they possibly could. Well, we'll see.
And it was unfortunate because, the first game got rained out, the Nationals and Yankees. That got rained out in the 6th inning. They just called the game in 6. And then the second game was the Giants and Dodgers. And, of course, me being a Rockies fan, I can't stand the Dodgers. I had to watch them win. It was a rough go.
So, any predictions for who gets into the World Series, however they're doing it?
Oh, predictions. It's a toss-up. With a 60-game season, really anything can happen. And also last night, Rod Manfred, the commissioner of baseball, said that the MLB is planning on expanding their playoffs for 2020. So now 16 teams get in instead of 10. So now pretty much half of MLB is going to be in the playoffs. So it really puts up some, competitiveness in the MLB season. A lot of people are on, the usual teams, the New York Yankees, the Los Angeles Dodgers. Those are the 2 best teams with the best odds to win the World Series. I think a couple dark horses, maybe the Tampa Bay Rays, maybe even the Washington Nationals again. But as far as my Rockies, I'm not sure about the Rockies. They got them kind of middle of the pack. But the Rockies, you take the Colorado Rockies as a team within a span of 60 games, and they're a pretty outstanding team. But when you put them in a 165-game schedule, it's always up and down, So
we will see what happens.
We'll see what happens, man.
It will be fun to watch, that's for darn sure, and you'll keep us surprised along the way. Nathan Matoush, producer extraordinaire, once again working the Matoush magic here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Thanks for popping on today.
Jimmy, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good weekend as well. Once again, Nathan Matoush, producer extraordinaire, joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. Well, that is it for us today on this Friday edition of the program, just talking about a few topics of the day. We will be back Monday. Be sure to tune in then. And tomorrow morning, 7 to KNUS in Denver, 6 to 9, filling in for George Brockler, and also 5 to 8 p.m. in the evening, of course, the Jimmy Sengenberger Show. Be sure to tune in for that. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you have not done so already, youtube.com/Jimmy at the Crossroads. Have a great weekend. Stay well and stay healthy. My thanks to you for watching, subscribing, all those good things. And, of course, my thanks to the Washington Examiner, our partners here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, the show that brings you engaging, intelligent talk, sang style. Once again, have a good weekend, and may God bless America.